You can pretty it up all you want to, Judge. This is what you said at Mr. Micah's sentencing. These are your words, not mine. What I can say, you said, is that this is a very tragic situation of a person who has a lot of good in him. A lot of good in him. Having done a very reprehensible thing to 2 young children, causing extreme damage. Did I read that correctly?
Senator, in that case, I imposed the sentence the state requested.
Did I read that, your quotation, correctly?
Senator, that I think is a portion of what I said at sentencing. My focus was on...
But the words I read, are they correct?
That's what was reported in the paper, Senator. I have not seen a transcript of the sentencing.
I bet the victims remember, Judge. You might have forgotten, just like you forgot his name, but I bet the victims remember.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, follow and subscribe to keep in touch. I'm a proud patriot who stands for the Constitution, justice, and, most importantly, the safety of our communities and families. If you're a freedom-loving American, make sure to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and join the conversation. Today we're going to talk about something that should really anger every single American who cares about law and order, about justice, and about protecting the innocent. We're talking about the incredibly disturbing exchange between Senator John Kennedy and a judge, where he confronts her over her ridiculously lenient sentencing in a case involving the sexual abuse of young children. Now, before we dive in, let me set the stage. This judge, Judge Liza Lopez, is facing some serious scrutiny for her track record when it comes to sentencing criminals. And by criminals, I mean the kind of predators that make your blood boil. This isn't about a speeding ticket or someone stealing a candy bar. This is about monsters who prey on our children and get off with light sentences because some judges like Lopez seem more interested in protecting criminals than in defending the innocent. So, let's break this down and take a good hard look at what's really going on here. After watching this video,
you have more sympathy for the criminal than the victim, don't you?
Senator, I worked on behalf of victims of crime zealously as a prosecutor. As a judge, I listened carefully to understand impact on victims, and I have always take that into account.
Do you know Micah Smith?
Michael Smith, Senator?
Micah, M-I-C-H.
I don't believe I know a Micah Smith, Senator, no.
Okay. I bet the victims of Micah Smith remember Micah Smith, if you don't.
Senator, there was a defendant I sentenced named Michael Smith.
Mr. Smith molested a 4-year-old girl, didn't he?
Senator, he was convicted after trial of unlawful sexual contact under Maine law.
That's a nice way of putting it.
That was the charge, Senator.
Right. Mr. Smith molested a 9-year-old girl, didn't he?
Senator, again, he was convicted of unlawful sexual contact against 2 children. In that case, I did impose the sentence the state requested.
At oral argument, this is how Mr. Smith's conduct was described. Quote, you heard this testimony. All of the abuse is done in the same fashion. Smith would rub his fingers in a circular motion on the vagina of each child, and he did so repeatedly. Now, where I come from, we call that sexual abuse. You can pretty it up all you want to, Judge. This is what you said at Mr. Micah's sentencing. These are your words, not mine. What I can say, you said, is that this is a very tragic situation of a person who has a lot of good in him. A lot of good in him. Having done a very reprehensible thing to 2 young children, causing extreme damage. Did I read that correctly?
Senator, in that case, I imposed the sentence the state requested.
Did I read your quotation correctly?
Senator, that, I think, is a portion of what I said at sentencing. My focus was on...
But the words I read, are they correct?
That's what was reported in the paper, Senator. I have not seen a transcript of the sentencing.
I bet the victims remember, Judge. You might have forgotten, just like you forgot his name. But I bet the victims remember. And then you handed down a sentence. You gave Mr. Smith 12 years, but you suspended 6 of them, didn't you?
Senator, that was at the recommendation of the state because
but it was your ruling. Did you? Is that an accurate statement of your ruling?
Senator, I accepted the state's recommendation that 6 years should be suspended so that Mr. Smith would be required to participate in sex offender treatment.
I appreciate the lengthy explanation, but I think it's a pretty simple question. That was your sentence, right?
Yes, I imposed the sentence the state requested in that case.
Are you familiar with the Bangor Daily News?
I am the Bangor Daily News, Senator.
Right. Did you read the article they wrote, quote, "Light sentences send a message that domestic violence does not matter," end quote. You remember that article?
I have read it, Senator. I believe it mischaracterizes a case that is
article was about you, wasn't it?
My recollection, Senator, is that it described several different cases. The case that I worked on that was described there, the defendant in that case was acquitted by a jury of the most serious conduct, and that was not reflected in that article. And so
the newspaper got it wrong.
That was an op-ed that I believe misunderstood what happened, which is the jury acquitted the defendant of the most serious conduct that he was charged with. I was not the fact finder in that case, and so at sentencing I was bound by the jury's verdict.
Let me ask you, I'm going to run out of time here. I wish I had more time for you, Ms. Campbell, but I've seen a lot of activist judges, and I'm not saying you're the most activist, but the list you're on, it sure doesn't take long to call the roll. Let me finish with this question. I'm going to end as I began, Judge Lopez. You have more sympathy for criminals than victims, don't you?
Senator, I have the support of the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence and the Maine Coalition Against Sexual Assault. I believe that support is a reflection of the work I did as a prosecutor, as well as the care I take with cases involving victims as a judge.
You're embarrassed to answer my question, aren't you?
Thank you to the nominees for being here. I'm sorry that I was unable to preside, but in the capable hands of my colleague, Peter Welch. Judge Lopez.
First off, we have to give credit where credit is due. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana does not pull punches. He came right out swinging, asking the tough questions that we all need answers to. Kennedy confronts Judge Lopez about a case involving a criminal named Michael Smith, someone who molested 2 young girls. Yeah, let that sink in. 2 young children. This guy wasn't just some petty criminal. This was a monster. And yet, Lopez, in her infinite wisdom, gives him a 12-year sentence, but suspends half of it. 6 years, mind you. 6 years suspended. What does that even mean? Well, it means that this guy might only serve half of his time for destroying the lives of 2 innocent children. Now, I know some people are going to argue, oh, the judge was just following the state's recommendations, but let me be clear about something. Just because someone recommends something doesn't mean you have to follow it, especially when it's so far from what is just or right. This judge had a duty to protect these kids, to show the world that we won't stand for this kind of sickening behavior. But instead, she chose to go soft on a criminal. It's almost as if she's more concerned about the feelings of the criminal than the victims. And that's exactly what Senator Kennedy calls her out on. You have more sympathy for the criminal than the victim, don't you? And folks, this is where it gets even more infuriating. Judge Lopez can't even remember the name of the predator she sentenced. That's right, she couldn't even remember the name of the man who molested a 4-year-old girl and a 9-year-old girl. But don't worry, she remembers the names of the criminals she tries to coddle and protect. And then, to make matters worse, she tries to justify her actions by talking about the good in him. Are you kidding me? Let's be real here. There is no good in a man who molests children. No amount of good can erase the damage he's done to those innocent lives. And for this judge to sit there and act as if we should pity these criminals because they've got some good in them is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry, but the people who have the right to pity are the victims. Those children who will have to live with this trauma for the rest of their lives. Not the guy who made their lives a living nightmare. And don't even get me started on the argument that this man should get treatment. Treatment? He molested children, for crying out loud. You know what he needs? He needs to be behind bars for the rest of his life. That's the treatment he deserves. Now let's move on. The judge, Lopez, tried to justify her actions by claiming that she had the support of organizations like the Maine Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Yeah, she's got support from these organizations, but why? Because she coddles criminals? Because she's more concerned about offenders than the victims? That's not justice, folks. That's a problem. And it's a problem we're seeing more and more, especially in the liberal activist courts across this country. Let me ask you a question, folks. How many more times are we going to let these judges get away with letting predators like this off the hook? This is why we need to fight back. This is why we need more patriots in office who will stand up and say, enough is enough. We need leaders who put the victims first, who understand the severity of these crimes, and who aren't afraid to make the tough decisions. Because the soft-on-crime approach isn't working. It's destroying our communities, it's destroying our families, and it's destroying our children's futures. And as for Judge Lopez, well, I'm sorry, but we need to start holding judges accountable for these kinds of decisions. We can't keep letting the justice system be hijacked by activists who care more about making excuses for criminals than about protecting the innocent. That's not the justice system we were promised when this country was founded. It's time for change. It's time for real justice. I want to know what you think. Are you as outraged as I am about Judge Lopez's leniency? Do you think the justice system is broken? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're as frustrated as I am, share this video. Share it with your friends, with your family, and with your community. It's time to start holding our leaders accountable. We can't let this continue. The victims need us to speak out. Thanks for watching. Stay strong, stay patriotic, and don't ever back down in the fight for justice. I'll see you next time.